John Busbee with the Culture Buzz, and it is that time. Every 2 months I get the glorious honor and pleasure of sharing with you an interview about the current issue of Iowa History Journal, and this is a dandy one. In fact, this is one that kind of touches close to home. Why? Well, because I am just like so many people, not just in Iowa, but across the country, who grew up as a 4-H club member in southeast Iowa, and the memories still resonate deep within me. That's just the way it is. And so it was really with great pleasure I saw that, I knew who I'm going to interview this next time, because the new issue, the cover story, is Mother of 4-H, Jessie Field Shambaugh. And that means I get to talk with probably one of the preeminent authorities and researchers in history on the history of 4-H, Dr. Janice Friedel. And it's a great honor to have you here. And if we may drop down to a more informal conversation, Jan, may I address you that way?
Yes, please do.
Great.
That's what everyone calls me.
You have been, this has been one of your ongoing passion projects, to know as much as possible about the history of 4-H, and also the woman who is considered the mother of 4-H. I never know what my first question is going to be, but I have to ask it this way. What was that initial connection to the story about 4-H and what it meant and what it means to so many people and what it meant to so many people over the century plus?
Well, that's a profound question. I got initially interested in Jessie Field because I had been contacted in the early 1970s to contribute to the fourth volume to be published by Harvard University Press of Notable American Women. And having been studying the role of women in American history, I wanted to nominate women from Iowa. And I had been doing research and had uncovered Jessie Field Shambaugh and her role in 3-H and early 4-H, and had begun to assemble that history. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do. And what started in the early 70s has culminated in more than 40 years of research involving Jessie's daughter, Ruth Shambaugh Watkins, who's now deceased, and at the time, the 3-Hers that I could locate who were still around and those that were in 4-H. And I became so enthralled with their stories, where after 3, 4, 5 decades, those individuals spoke with such passion. And I remember Zula Webb Reynolds in New Market, Iowa, who, when I asked if I could interview her, I did at her home, and she went into her bedroom and pulled out a wooden box under her bed and showed me the pins and honors that she had won in 1909 and around that time, and the medals that she had gotten. And, I've learned since then, since her passing, that she left those to the Nottoway Valley Historical Museum in Clarinda. And I interviewed those individuals that I could find, and they still spoke with such passion of 3-H and what it meant to them. And I uncovered that not only was Jessie the innovator who started 3-H, but she was very much involved in educational reform. And some of the things that we are trying to stress in today's schools with involve students by learning, by doing, and active learning, that she had instituted that at the turn of the century, how to make schools more relevant to the needs of young people living in rural areas so that they wouldn't have this continued brain drain that they were experiencing, young people wanting to move away from the farms and rural areas and move to the cities where life was exciting. And the same thing we're hearing now.
Oh, that's
what got me started, and it was the challenge of finding these people and having people tell me, well, I know someone who's here, or this person is at this nursing home. You need to go interview them.
Yes.
And when you read that article, I tried to get across the very humanist part of Jessie.
It truly,
her love for her family.
You truly captured this so beautifully. Jan Friedel is my guest, and she has done a masterful job of condensing the passion and the meticulous research and just the sharing of what the 4-H story and the 3-H story, because I'm going to ask you about that, because a lot of people could say, wait, what do you mean 3-H? We're going to talk about that. This is the feature, the cover story of the Iowa History Journal that is now available to you. You can go find this in a variety of places. You're curious about this. If you're not a subscriber, go check out iowahistoryjournal.com. There will be a listing of all the locations where you can get your copy of Iowa History Journal. It includes Fairways and Hy-Vees. It includes Barnes & Noble. It includes Beaverdale Books. It includes a number of places. My advice is, if you are just finding out about Iowa History Journal, be wise like an ever-growing number of people are, and become a subscriber. For about $20 a year, you get 6 beautiful issues of Iowa History Journal that contain some of the most riveting stories that just are going to have you just saying, my gosh, I didn't realize that we had so much great history in Iowa. And in this case, we are talking about the mother of 4-H, Jessie Field Shambaugh. And it is a great, great story. You really hit upon one neat thing, is that this is a multi-generational heritage that she established. She was an educator, which must have been one of the first things that resonated with you, Jan. And from there, she built these foundational tenets that are very much alive and relevant today. Let's go back to that question about the 3-H into the 4-H, if you would.
Well, Jessie started her career teaching in 1901 at the Goldenrod School, which is now moved to the property of the Nottoway Valley Museum in Clarinda. And while there, the boys would stay after, and they would question her because in class she started to incorporate material that was coming to her through the Farmers Institute that her father had attended, and that were coming from Cornell University about improving rural education. And surprisingly, the boys stayed after school, and they wanted to plant a garden, and so they planted a vegetable garden. And her brother Henry gave her in the fall. He ran Henry Seed Company tulip bulbs. So some of the first tulips to bloom in Page County were at that Goldenrod School. And she taught what today we would call sustainable farming, eco-friendly farming, environmental sustainability, that you can replenish the nutrients that are drawn out of the soil because of some plants, and use other plants the following spring to put those nutrients back into the soil. She taught them about erosion and how to terrace farming, and how to pick the best seed. And so there was a corn judging effort going on, and she brought out Harry Holden from Iowa State University, and he was going around the country providing these farmers institutes, and he came and spoke to the boys' clubs about the corn competition that would go on, the international corn competition in Omaha. judged the best seed corn in the country. And they had a competition in the county, judged by local experts and experts from Iowa State. And they took the winning teams and the exhibits that 300 kids from Page County put together relating to crop production and the domestic arts of the girls. And the corn exhibit that they had won first place.
Wow. I mean, I'm going to let you catch your breath a little bit there because, folks, what you're getting is just a glimpse into all the incredible background, this history, the story of 4-H here in Iowa as delivered by excuse me, Dr. Janice Nahra Friedel. You have just done a masterful job here. Now, folks, I will tell you this, Iowa History Journal, this issue, just for that story alone, is worth the price of admission. But I have to squeeze in here, Jan, that there are other stories here. There's about John Mott, who was a renowned evangelist and a Nobel Prize winner. You can explore history through the story about the Sioux City Railroad Museum, an incredible history in and of itself. And, well, by golly, the publisher even let me write a story about Riverview Amusement Park here in Iowa, the Coney Island of Iowa. There are so many great things here. As we wrap things up here, I want to talk about one last thing, and that is one of the foundations that I gleaned from what Jessie had to instill in all the people who participated was the concept of doing project work, hands-on. You got to do. And talk a little bit just about that.
Yes, it wasn't just book learning. It wasn't just reciting. It wasn't just telling the leader what it is that you had observed. That you had to learn by doing and draw conclusions from what you were doing. So you took a sampling of seed corn. What kind of a test could you run on it to identify what would be the best to use the following fall? And then they would test it. And for her teams to win 3 years in a row, the International Corn Judging Team Award in Omaha, and to win for her, they gave it to her. They won a one-cylinder red brush automobile for her. This was before the, and this was before 1920. And they didn't know what to do with it, so they gave it to Jessie. And she traveled to her 130 schools that she was superintendent of, to show to them that, yes, here in southwest Iowa, our students are applying what they're learning. And there were superintendents from all over the country that came to Page County. The Rockefeller Foundation sent superintendents from the near south to come to Iowa to see how the next generation of farmers could learn from the experiences of the youth in Iowa. And then Iowa State started a program in the summer for the boys to come to Iowa State to learn farming. And later, of course, these were all expanded to include girls. And it didn't take very long for that to happen at all because the boys demanded it. The boys wanted their sisters involved.
Yep. Well, it's a great, great story. And folks, if you want to read one of the great cover stories that Iowa History Journal has delivered, read about Mother of 4-H, Jessie Field Shambaugh, by Jan Friedel. She has written a great story, captivating. It's going to get you wanting to dive deeper into this and find out more about the history of one of the great things that started here, one of the many great things that started here in Iowa, 4-H. It is wonderful. Thank you for this fantastically written story, Jan. It is great. Folks, find out more. Go to iowahistoryjournal.com. That is where you can become a subscriber. You can find out where they have it on sale now, and that's what you want to do. And I think it's safe to assume, Jan, that maybe Jessie might have been an inspiration for your masterful career in education as well.
Yes. We certainly have been, yes.
I love it. Well, thank you for your work, for your deep research, and for sharing such fast